EP Magazine presents Layla Tamimi and her uplifting story, from suffering a debilitating paralysis and stroke to graduating this past January with honors from Montclair State University. In addition, we focus on vision, hearing, speech, and how these impact the development and education of people with special needs. Read it today at www.epmagazine.com.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of REITs Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, Two Lives at Once. And with every REIT you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. Two Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, two lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to readsacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's readsacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
Suicide is preventable, and each of us has a role to play in suicide prevention.
Suicide is complex. There is no single cause.
And it's not always a mental health issue. It could be loss of a job or home, financial or relationship issues, pain, or leaving the military.
Suicide does not discriminate. It affects all ages, races, and genders, veterans or not.
If you know a veteran who is struggling, connect with them. Let them know help is available.
There is quick and easy access to services in times of crisis.
Dial 988, then press 1. Talking about it is okay.
Don't keep it inside. Don't be ashamed. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. My name is Travis, Marine Corps veteran and your host. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubazoo Network. You can find out more on hubazoo.com. I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asack of Asack Real Estate, Army National Guard veteran Mark Holmes of Reapers Detailing and Power Washing, and my supporters, Kason Shaving Company, Exceptional Parent Magazine, and Black Cat Designs. So look, folks, if you're seeing that logo on my guest chest, wow, I got to put that into a little tongue twister. You'll know that that's part of Operation Veteran Now, or Vet Now, OVN. We've had Tony on to talk with us about OVN, and now I get to talk to one of his athletes, one of the athlete ambassadors, one of the veteran athlete ambassadors, Brett Stralo. Did I get that right, Brett?
Yes, sir, you did. We get a lot of Stralos, so that's good. Thank you for getting it right.
Worked on it. Brett Stralo, Army veteran. Welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Man, it's awesome. I love the mission of OVN. I like this idea of using sporting events and ambassador athletes who care about their fellow veterans and who've served themselves to, spread what we can do as veterans out there. So it's just always great getting to talk to Tony or veterans like yourself. And before we get into all this great, good stuff, and it's 100% like USDA good, tell me a little bit about who Brett is growing up and what you do in the military.
Yeah, so I grew up in Valley Center, California. It's a very small town. it's kind of hard to explain, because if you ever were to go there and you cross over that county line, you'd think you could change states. Dad's an avocado farmer, and so I grew up on 66 acres of avocados, cruising around, learning to work with my pops, and he's the one who got me into motorcycles and dirt bikes and stuff. It was something we did together, which is really great. So my childhood was filled with dirt bikes, BMX, running around with my dogs, picking avocados and driving tractors and all that kind of stuff, typical form by stuff, which really surprises people quite often when they're like, wait, you're from California, that doesn't make sense. Well, yeah, you don't understand all of California. I mean, we 30 minutes to the closest grocery store for us and out there. So yeah, and it's a great way to grow up. Let me tell you, I see people now they're on their computers and stuff. We didn't have time for that. We were outside till the sun went down, and we were up, before it came up. Video games only happened, after you did your outdoor stuff, you had your fun. If the sun was down, then maybe get an hour or so. And so yeah, I mean that was kind of how I grew up, where I grew up. Moving from there, I graduated high school, and actually before I even graduated high school, I was already in the military. I was part of one of those early entry programs as a junior. So I actually joined in 2005. I entered in as it's kind of an interesting little funny story there. Is I was going to join, basically, I wanted to kind of join the Marine Corps, the Army, and my mom was pretty adamant that she wouldn't sign any kind of like agreement, being 17, for something that didn't carry a job with it. So that's how I became a helicopter mechanic. My dad's a pilot. He flies a fixed wing, uses a little bush plane to go from ranch to ranch, because we also have a ranch out in California in Borrego Springs, does lemons out there. And so I've been around aviation my whole life. And so I was like, whatever, man, it's badass airframe. Like, let's go. I had no clue what I was getting myself into. Signed up in a time of war, and I'm going to do an attack, airframe. And that pretty much set the tone for what my career was going to be, which was a whole lot of being gone. And so being a AH-64 helicopter mechanic, I think one of the funny stories that I always tell people is, like, you walk in, you see it for the first time, you're like, oh my God, like, just like, it's overwhelming looking at this sheer a show of force, just looking at the thing,
Right.
and just the pure technology of it. And then you start working on it, and you're like, man, this thing is the biggest piece of junk. God, I hate this thing. And then you'll get down range, and you find yourself in a bad situation, and you watch that beautiful death machine do what it's intended to do, and suddenly you love it again when it saves your butt.
Brett, there's a documentary like called Apache Warrior or something like that, where they talk about this wing of Apaches that went in, Iraq, and they got shot to smithereens. And at the end of the documentary, they show these things. I mean, the fact they were able to land is amazing, full of bullet holes. And the pilots wrote Boeing and said, thanks for building such a bulletproof machine. And it took them like a month. They fixed them up and flew them out. I mean, it's hard to believe.
I think that was actually, there's a couple of documentaries out there, so I could be wrong. Please don't take me to task on this. I believe it was 1st of 101st Airborne, which Expect No Mercy Battalion, which was my old unit that had that done. We were the unit that went in and took out the towers in Desert Storm with A models under then Captain Cody, who became General Cody, over all of 101st Airborne when I was there. And I believe he became a Joint Chief of Staff at some point. But anyway, that was my first unit in the Army, was 1st 101st Airborne, Expect No Mercy, and those guys were second to none, let me tell you. And in my time, I've seen them hit the ground. I've picked pilots out of aircraft, and not necessarily with that unit all the time, but I did it again with 2nd Infantry Division when we deployed to Afghanistan my second time. But that first one, I can't count how many times we had aircraft come back pouring fuel out of them from getting shot to live in hell, and they still fly. And we'd get in it, and we'd pull a 36-hour day to the point where you're almost hallucinating, from lack of sleep, and that trying to get that thing back in the fight, because when we get troops of contact, we were their first line QRF. You have different levels of QRF, when you deploy, and I'm sure you're familiar. You have your ground QRF, and then you have air QRF, and we were air QRF for those guys. So we took it personally if we didn't get our aircraft off the ground as quickly as possible. So much so that we would APU rate our maintainers, people like me, and I was one of them, and we would go fire that airframe up while the pilots grab their gear and we're coming, and start going through all the tests and all the stuff and start getting it ready to go and finding out if that aircraft is ready to fly, doing all their pre-flight stuff. Well, they're pre-flighting too. A lot of times they were already pre-flighted, but they still would go around, just do one quick walk around, double check, and hop in the airframe, back them out, send them on their way to go do their business. And they'd come back empty and full of holes, quite often, actually. And yeah, those beautiful machines will fly just absolutely tore up. I've seen an aircraft came in, and I don't remember exactly what it was that caused this to happen, but a weapons cache went up, and it basically turned the rotor blades and everything into Swiss cheese. And we had a maintenance test pilot come in there, and it was just a hop skip over into the fob where we could get to maintain more maintainers on it and get it out of danger zone outside the wire. And I remember just throwing like 100-mile-an-hour tape over some of those holes and him pulling pitch and flying it like that. The whole thing just shaking like crazy. We're like, dude, that thing's gonna fall. And mate, I'm like, dude, the pilots are gnarly too. People don't even get it. I'm telling you.
Well, it's different. Just, we won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I've had an Apache pilot on my show talking about how it's different for the Army to do this versus, say, like the Air Force, the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps has the Cobras, right? But for a fixed wing close air support is way different than rotary wing, because they're hovering in place and providing that support sometimes right over the trip, whereas the aircraft has to fly. It can't stop.
Yeah.
And so it takes a beating and a real nerve of steel to do it, man. So it was just really interesting. It's always been interesting understanding the differences in that level of support and how the airframes operate. So
it's intense. I mean, so much so that there's stories of not being able to get extraction for guys, and our pilots kind of going against orders because we kind of told you we take it personal when people are in danger and we can't help them, we're out of ammo, whatever. And we had pilots put themselves in danger and drop in and land. Two guys jumped on the sides and just held on for dear life while we picked up and left with them. Not supposed to do that. Super against the rules. And so we have lots of stories of like that kind of stuff. We can always go back down that road, later. But
sure,
we tend to be a lot closer to special forces groups, SEALs, infantrymen, pathfinders, all of your gnarly first tier operators and below that are out there in the fight a hell of a lot more than I was. And I was in the fight quite a bit during my time too, just because of DART missions, which is downed aircraft recovery team. Afghanis would attack us almost always. We'd get in there, it's cherry ICLZ, shit pops off while you're trying to get that thing off the ground. And it's pretty crazy when you think about some of the stuff that we do. And we were just very different in the Army. When you think of Army aviation compared to other aviation units, we were a lot closer to what an infantry unit was like because of our TAC element and the fact that we were always out there supporting those troops, and we cared a whole heck of a lot for those guys. So
absolutely.
I 100% agree with you. It's very unique. Yeah, those machines are a beautiful thing when you're in a bad situation. Let me tell you.
Absolutely.
I missed it firsthand.
How long were you in the Army?
9 years is the easiest way to say it, but it was just over 8.5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you were in the Army for 8 years, Brett. You transition out after that. How did you start embracing motocross as a whole new way to do things?
So this is the part of the story that gets to where I was talking to you about before we started recording, where I feel long form is really good for this.
Okay.
It's sometimes hard for me to talk about because it's rough when you really think about it, what we all go through, whether you've been in the crap, so to speak, a lot more than me or not. We all come back from more different. And when we were first coming back from my first deployment, it was still pretty not okay to talk about, So I ended up self-medicating a lot, bottom of a bottle. And I ruined my life several times over, in a lot of different ways, and had to stand myself back up and get back on 2 feet and keep going. And when I I went through a lot after my final deployment, and I was looking to get out, and I went out, said, I want to go back. I've been riding dirt bikes my whole life, and I haven't been while I was in the military. And so I was a good rider as a kid, and I just kind of threw my talent away a little bit and just didn't feel supported, even though I probably had more support from my parents than I even realized. But I was like, I don't want to put in the work. I didn't feel like I was going to have the support to back that. And I was totally wrong. If they would have seen me put in the work, right? Like hindsight's 2020, they probably would have supported it 10 times more than they did. And so it's not against them. It's just at the time, being a teenager and young and dumb, I wasn't capable of seeing that. So kind of threw some talent away, and I was like, but I enjoy this. I want to go and do it. So I started riding again, and I found a lot of peace. And then I found my talent again. I started riding really good, started racing, and I found even more peace in it. And I started to feel like I could step away from some of the things that were holding me back, things that were that I was self-medicating with, and this became a therapy for me. And then I was like, okay, I see so many soldiers getting out as I was transitioning. I'm used up goods, whatever they would feel, and not everybody feels that, but so many that I'd talked to felt like they gave their best years to the military and they didn't have anything left to give to chase their dreams. So I said, screw that. I am chasing it, and I want to be in the example. So I started training super hard, started racing a lot, and that's how I kind of set out to that goal. I was never a pro before I entered the military. I was novice intermediate at best. And by the time I was 30 years old, I'd earned my pro license, and I met that first goal, showing you can still go out and live a dream.
Yeah, man, because I mean, 30 is not an old man, but in that world, isn't 30 like, you're getting up there?
Ancient, dude.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. But what I was getting at there about it being a therapy, then I started to realize that with my pro license, I could give back with this. And so I started to realize what this was really doing for me. And I went to school and became a personal trainer. I went through exercise science degree and things like that. And I started to understand the body and what was happening to me. And I started to realize why, when I would get on the dirt bike, it was just like, right, what was in front of me? The adrenaline release I was getting that I wasn't capable of really getting any other way anymore. Different things that were missing from post deployment. Like I could make everything stop, all the noise. I could get rid of it. I could make it go away. I stopped having so many nightmares and stuff like that and started dreaming about what I was going to do in the races. I stopped having such problems with some of the experiences that I had been through. So I decided I want to show these people. If I can get one person, because I'm going to tell you right now, I cannot tell you I would be on this earth today if it wasn't for the two wheels that I get on. I can't. I wish I could confidently say that. I experienced something that I thought I'd never experienced in my life, which would be suicidal ideology. And this took that away from me. I was able to find my own peace and therapy outside of VA recommendations and pills and substances and all this other stuff. I found a healthy outlet. In my head, I thought, if I can help one guy to experience what I did, if I can get one person through that by showing them a lifestyle that is so much more healthy. Yeah, it's dangerous, but everyday life is dangerous, right? And so that's when I got in with VetMX. Veteran MX Foundation is another foundation that actually OVN knows and works with. And then I built Warrior MX, and then I got on with Tony last year. And being with Tony has been great. Everything he does, and it's been great. But what I started doing with my pro licenses, I started my own program that I call Warrior MX, and it's not very big. I don't really promote it like crazy, but it's just what I kind of dub it, right? And so we go to the nationals with pro events that's televised and stuff. I give them these special wristbands that I can get as a rider, mechanics bands, and give them an experience that you cannot get from a normal event as a spectator. And then on top of that, I bring, there's tons of vets around me with VetMX or OVN or whoever. And so then there's this sense of camaraderie that we can show them that I also experienced from motocross. People checking up on you, you're back in that that area. And then with all the other veterans around, these guys, when we put them on two wheels and then they're done, let's say we do a ride day with NMX or whoever, we have all these veterans around and they sit down and they start immediately, like they've been best friends since day one, start talking about their own stuff, and they start opening up and getting this stuff aired out there. And this is all in an effort, the bottom line, to reduce that 22 a day, which I believe is higher than that. That 22 suicides a day. It's something that I take very, very seriously and very passionate about. And I'll tell you right now, I'll put my phone number out on your podcast if there's a veteran in need. I don't care what time of night it is. I've told any veteran, if you are thinking of it, you call me, you call somebody. We'll help you through it. There ain't no judgment. I won't be mad. I don't care if it's 1 o'clock in the morning and my baby's sleeping right next to me and I get woke up. I don't care if he gets woke up. If it means I get to save that man's life, it ain't a problem. And it's something that I have done for a few different Marines, actually, while I was living in California. I just recently moved back to Colorado. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how I got into motocross and in with OVN and those guys and BetMX and everybody, and kind of what we started there.
Well, like I said, before we started talking, I don't ride motocross. I wish I had. Maybe I'm a little bit older than you. Maybe I'll do that for 2025. But I do ride a motorcycle. I've ridden since I was 18 years old, and in certain times of my life, man, that motorcycle has been a sanctuary that I can't get anywhere else. Like, everything goes away, and there's a lot going on around you. But there's something about being two wheels, your hand on the throttle, shifting through the gears, that puts me in a different spot. So I certainly understand where you're coming from. What's it like? I watch the TV and you all line up on the starting line, the gate drops, and you're off. And it just seems to me, Brett, that there's a lot of chaos going on. So take me through that. Seriously, though. You're in all that chaos, and not only watching yourself, but the people around you. There's a lot going on. How do you find that quiet center when your body's getting moved around a little bit, the bike's moving around, and oh yeah, you got some guy, if you're not careful, he will run you right over. So how's that center found?
That's the beauty of the human body, right? Like, it kind of helps you with that. I'll tell you right now, just sitting on the starting gate, it's such a physical sport. I will tell you that. A lot of people don't understand that. When you get on a dirt bike, the track's always changing. The ruts are never the same. Every lap you come around, there's a different bump, there's a different kicker, there's a different something. You'll hear people talk about how there's 40 guys on the gate, there's a 41st, and that 41st is the track. It's the one thing that is always going to be unpredictable, because it's going to be different. And so you have to scan and analyze that stuff. But when I'm sitting on that gate and I'm not even doing anything yet, I mean, your heart rate, I have a heart rate monitor on while I ride and stuff, and it'll be 190, 200. You ain't even left the gate yet. You know what I mean? I mean, you're just pinned out, adrenaline. The start is the worst of it. So you get out of the start, you're going into that first corner. I mean, you are just maxed out, and that adrenaline allows you to, I feel like, find that focus. And I think veterans are uniquely good at this, because that is where we used to operate. We were trained to operate in that state. And so we get to find our calm a lot easier, I think, than the normal person. I think most motocross racers would be the same way. But it's unique in that sense, right? So the way you kind of find that is you just gotta, because you'll find yourself holding your breath without realizing it, is to try to just remember to breathe and just focus on what's in front of you. Motocross is freedom. You can get as creative as you want to. It is a blank canvas for you to decide which line you want to take. There's 6 riders in front of me. There's all this different way. Okay. You're analyzing all these different things and trying to figure out how to go through that. And the best way to do it is the most creative way a lot of times. And so you have an open door for creativity on it, whether it be the style you're riding, what you're doing, trying to find your flow. And once you're able to open up and you guys kind of get some distance from you, and then that's when everything kind of calms down a little bit, and you kind of set in a pace and try and stay consistent. it's a very challenging thing, especially because you also have a huge crowd around you, especially at the national level. And so when you're looking around at these people, that can become quite overwhelming too. So it's very unique. It's a very unique experience. But honestly, I at a physiological level, things happen for you in that environment that are almost undescribable. And it only comes through practice and doing it over and over and over again. And you kind of figure that out. And, you're coming into a first corner, there's 40 riders aiming for the same damn thing. And it gets a little hairy. And sometimes you end up in a pile up and you got to pick yourself up and go out there and still finish that 30-minute moto if you're not hurt, which does happen from time to time too. And I mean, actually hurt, not ow.
Right, right.
Um, it's a war out there, man. And that's one of those ways to put it, because that roost coming off the back of a 450 or even the 250 class is brutal. I mean, I come back, look like I just got hammered with paintballs. I mean, it's insane. Hands will be black and blue sometimes just from the roost. It's gnarly. And so you're dodging people, you're dodging rocks, ruts, lines. You're trying to figure out which jump line to hit, because a lot of times there's ruts on the faces of the jumps that can really affect the way the bike acts in the air and different things like that. And it's just, you just gotta take a deep breath and kind of focus and just get in that zone, almost like tunnel vision. Ignore what's happening behind you at first and focus forward. Yeah, you can't race behind you. You got to race in front of you.
Well, growing up, I don't remember, just to talk more the motorcycle side of it for a second. I don't remember back in when I was a kid, the motorcycles being able to, for lack of a better term, fly that high, land that well, and keep going. Has suspension and rider's skill morphed that much in the last 30 years that it just seems like it's not a question of if you can do it, it's just when you're going to be able to go further faster.
Yeah, I'd say the progression started in the 90s, with the modern two-stroke era. When that came around, Jeremy McGrath is probably one of the biggest names in the sport from that era, being that he's still considered the king. He has the most wins and titles and things. And he took like a BMX stand style to his riding, very smooth. And the suspension got a lot better then. It went to an upside down fork. The monoshock back in the day transitioned into that. All that kind of stuff just started to slowly progress. And then in around 2005, we had the introduction of the four-stroke. And then from there, it went to fuel injection. And then the suspension got even better. Now we're looking at, from back in the day, 46 millimeter forks to standards of 48. And the kit stuff's a 49. And you can go all the way up. The KTMs, they have a 52 millimeter fork, which the consumer really can't buy unless they're filthy rich, because they are wildly expensive to even just run and maintain. But yes, fuel injection, the power, the way they make power, the fuel injection, the connectivity, parts changing, the testing, all that stuff started to really change the game on what the bikes were capable of doing. Then you had guys like Jeremy McGrath and Ricky Carmichael and James Stewart, who really were, the pioneers of changing the sport. Jeremy McGrath brought that different BMX style and the jumping and different and the smooth. Ricky Carmichael brought the training. And then you had James Stewart, who everybody called Bubba Scrub, coined his move, the Bubba Scrub, which is this thing where you kind of turn the bike down on the face of the jump, and it basically puts an angle on the bike and reduces the amount of rebound so you stay lower to the ground. And all that stuff started to transition people into training camps and things to make them better. And now what we see is the track's getting bigger and gnarlier, because the jumps are much more doable on this four-stroke. We can do pretty much whatever the heck we want with the amount of power. A modern day 450 stock with zero modifications is in the 60 horsepower range, depending on
What?
Yeah.
Out of a 450?
Yeah. So like my KTM 450, I think, is 61 horsepower on the dyno in it. I have no engine mods. That's just race fuel.
So I ride a 1900cc V twin that's putting out like 89 horsepower at the rear wheel at 3,000 RPMs, and it's like 3 times bigger than your 450.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the motocross bikes are in the 200-pound range. So it's, quite impressive how much it is to handle 60 horsepower that light. Fuel injection really made a change to that, and allows that power, but that's all out of a single cylinder 450cc motorcycle. Compression ratios, the modern technology in fuel injection too really changed it a lot, because they can remap it to how you want it. You can take that 60 horsepower, make it a more linear, like even power curve, so it's not so much hit on the bottom. Or for supercross, you can put it all down on the bottom, which would be too much to handle, really.
I was
So
going to say,
yeah,
you're not even in first gear anymore. You can start in third. You got so much.
yeah, yeah. No one really starts in first. I think it's second gear is pretty much standard for outdoors. I think supercross is the same. The only time I've ever started in first gear is up here in Thunder Valley at elevation, because the start's uphill, and you do get a significant decrease in power at elevation. So,
What's it like being in this world, this culture, and getting support for what you're doing from like motorcycle companies, you know, aftermarket companies, and people seeing what you're doing by bringing veterans into the sport?
yeah, it's really unique. It's really difficult too at my age. They typically want to support, the young prodigy. Um, so, but with like 6D is the helmet company that I'm sponsored by, and they're an amazing company, best helmet on the market. It's really great because they love what I'm trying to do with protecting a veteran's head. We've already been through enough, when it comes to like brain injuries and things like that. So it's really cool. But we've got some great companies that do it, and a lot of times they'll give, these veterans a discount when they come to my to a lot of my clinics that we do at VetMX. The VetMX Foundation, they've brought in support from the industry as well. And the culture is really surprising. They've wrapped their arms around veterans in a way that I was not expecting. I knew they would be good to them. It's pretty pro-America industry, but to the level that's happened has been really, really just amazing to see. To the effect of even just at the Arlington Supercross not too long ago on TV, we had all the VetMX guys out there. A couple of OVN athletes were there, and they did what we called um, a jersey exchange. And what happened is we gave a jersey, and then the pros gave a jersey signed, and we auctioned all that stuff off, and they made like a bunch of money for this big BMX championship that we're going to do. And it was really, really, really cool to see the motocross industry get behind our cause like that. So
Awesome, man. Awesome. So you're doing this, you're doing your foundation. How does OVN figure into what you do as an ambassador athlete?
at first I didn't really know what Operation Vet Now was. One of their athletes kind of reached out to me and said, "Hey, you should really get in with this organization." And what's great about them is, not only do they promote what I do, and they've even supported me through forms of sponsorship and things like that, but they give me this really cool kit that came with some apparel, like the hoodie I'm wearing, and actually I have a OVN t-shirt on too. But these like suicide hotline stuff, and like how to help a veteran stuff, and so they give us all this stuff to be able to hand out at races and things for people to understand a veteran better and understand their mental state, which has been something that I think is probably one of the most unique things that they do for me over others, right? And connecting us with other veterans. They are helping me honor people who maybe made the ultimate sacrifice. Last year at Fox Raceway, we honored a Gold Star father and his son, who an EOD tech, Chief Petty Officer Finan was his name, and he gave the ultimate sacrifice in Iraq fighting ISIS, and so they've helped with that kind of style of things. They help us put together some of those people to honor and find the people that we should be, and then they promote that so the world gets to see it. And then they do other events and things like that to bring veterans together as well, and just overall support any veteran athletes trying to do, because I would say a majority of us that are doing something, whether it be in motocross, snowboarding, whatever it is that they're doing, fighting. OVN has a crazy amount of different athletes outside of even motocross. There's usually a helping veteran standpoint to it, and so it's great because they help us get that done. Because all of this takes a tremendous amount of money. Um, I'm sure my family would really appreciate it if I'd slow down with it a little bit because it takes a lot of my own personal money, you know. But what we're doing is so special and so much bigger than just my own goals that it's important. So having the support of OVN has been absolutely crucial because it helps us reach more. You know, it's not just the individual person here or there. We're able to get out to, you know, a much larger audience and have tools to given by OVN to help these guys.
Speaking of goals, Brett, what's your next goals for what you're doing with your foundation and your motocross career?
So we've never been able to do all 11 outdoor rounds. And this year is going to be the first year that we're going to attempt to do it through some support from a team called TPJ. Teddy Parks, the owner of the team, is super supportive of the VetaMex organization that I'm also affiliated with. And Mark Code, who's the board president, and Peter Lindquist, a buddy of mine, who also is a big help with that, and the Blankenship's, who started the VetaMex Foundation, have set up a really cool program where he takes their tent setup and all their stuff to each round of Supercross in the outdoors for us to set up and have a booth in the pits for people to visit and learn about the VetaMex Foundation, because we do catch fans that are, you know, veterans and they don't even know about us, and so we are able to talk to them, you know, and teach them about that foundation, what we do for each other. So with that, we're now going to add my motorcycle and my stuff along to it, so we can go to them and try and fly to each round. And you know, we're trying to work on getting the support together right now. And right now, we're going to do it all self-funded, so it's going to be a tough goal to make happen. But we're going to try and do it. We're kind of just throwing everything we got at it and kind of figure out how it's all going to shake out in the end. But the reason why that's important is we've only been able to do 3. So that's more vets, more things that we get to honor, and that's more veterans we get to bring to the races. That's from different states as well, because they go from 2 rounds in California to Colorado, then they all go to the East Coast, ranging from New York, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Indiana, all over the place, Midwest and stuff. I got my son in the background there.
Oh, that's cool, man. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so it's something that you know, it's been very important to try to get these veterans there. I obviously have always had the big goal of making the Fast 40. That's kind of my own personal dream and goal. I haven't been able to do it yet. I've been close, real close, just haven't done it. Outside of that goal, I win every time I show up to one of these races, even if I don't even get to race the main, and there's a winner at the end of that. And you know, I still won on the day because I got to bring these guys, honor them, show them a good time, introduce them to the community, and everything else that we get to do with them, and show them a healthier outlet for finding a form of therapy that they may agree with better than what the you know, the VA has to offer, which is typically some shrink who doesn't understand you and a bunch of pills. So
So I'm sitting here and, you know, winding this down thinking, wait a minute, the most important thing, like, I'm in the East Coast, in the Boston area. How would I check you out if you came this way, or how can I support what you're doing?
So, a couple ways to support this would be go to the VetaMex Foundation website and their Instagram, follow them. Operation Vet Now's Instagram, follow them.
Yep.
Mine is at Stralo225. That one would be a good one too, because you can get a hold of me directly there. And then if you wanted to check us out, you would go look at the Pro Motocross schedule, which is available online, and you can find out where we're going to be at when. And then as far as directly supporting anybody that wanted to help out, we offer several sponsorship packages and stuff like that. Or if you wanted to be a silent donor, that's fine too. And we do all that stuff however the person who got a hold of us wanted to do it. I've had people just sell me money before. I've had people send it direct, and they go, okay, here's my company. This is kind of what I'm looking for. And we put them on the bike and whatever. We've even had a group of guys who say, hey, we want to support what you're doing. So I take all their names and put them on like a little pit board and implement it on the graphics so they can, be seen as supporting this mission. And we show it to all the veterans that we bring and to all the people. And then just watching, interacting with veterans and pushing veterans to us. If you know a veteran that's in need and you think that this would be a good experience, going back to my social media or the VetMX Foundation, OVN, asking about it, they will put you in touch with me or whoever and is needed. And that's how we can get that support, because ultimately it's about getting the word out there to these guys and that kind of thing. As far as monetarily speaking goes, that's up to the person if they wanted to support, and that's something they just get a hold of me and we can work that out. And I have people that have reached out and been like, hey, I'm in this area, what can we do to help? Dude, we need somebody to pick me up from the airport and get me to that race. Cool, we'll see you there. And they come get me from the airport or whatever. So that there's a myriad of ways you can support within the limits of what you can do. And it's great because if you do support and you're getting on our bike, it's marketing, so it's a write-off. On top of that, you are helping not just a motocrosser, you're also helping the veterans, because it allows me to do more for them, because we try to feed them and everything else while they're there and take good care of them. So if somebody's got a company, yeah, I could use a tax write-off. It's a really great way to do it, and feel good about what you're doing, because none of the money that we take doesn't go towards either the racing or the veterans, right? It all goes to this program. We don't go take it for ourselves and put in our pocket. I work full time, so this is almost a second job for me. So I don't make any money off of it. It's 100% loss. I usually probably am at a $50,000 loss at the end of the year from it, so it's and that's with support. So it's you get these people that they want to donate to veteran causes, and then you go and look at them and you find out, that half that money goes to this person's salary and that person's salary, none of it goes to anybody's salary, and that includes the VetMX Foundation. If you wanted to go support the VetMX Foundation directly, they're a nonprofit and you can go support them. Same thing with Operation Vet Now, and those are all tax write-offs for you, and nobody's taking a paycheck at that. That's all going towards the programs that we do.
Awesome. Well, we'll have all those links in the Oscar Mike Radio show post, Brett. And, I just want to thank you for sharing. I love motorcycles. Again, I never really did, motocross for a lot of reasons. Wish I had. Maybe there's still hope for me. I don't know. We'll see. But
yeah, that's totally hope for you, sir.
There you go. But I really, resonate with what you're doing, and just want to say thank you, Tony, for getting us connected. And I'm going to check out all the stuff, Brett. And if you get to New York or Pennsylvania, we'll have to see about making this happen. All right.
There is a round in New York. We don't know if we're going to do it yet because it's going to be the most expensive to get to. It's in Unadilla.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a hike.
So
just slightly.
Yeah, be the only one that we'd miss all year. But if we get the support for it, and there's enough people that want us to go up there and do it, we'll do it. So.
All right. Well, my name is Travis with Oscar Mike Radio. Tony from Operation Vet Now. Thank you for connecting with Brett Stralo. All the best in your career, man. Thank you for sharing your story, and would definitely like to have you on to go down some of these roads of your life and experience for people to understand and support you, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me on, and we're happy to come on anytime.
Absolutely. Well, as we say in Oscar Mike Radio, we are mission in flight. Brett is throttle wide open, same thing. But we're both Oscar Mike. We'll see you soon, and by all means, check it out and support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, Honor teaches our mission. We care about it, and we do it every day. But I think there are things that just hit you and give you a reason to go on. The theme for our 2024 for Reach Across America is Live with Purpose. It just seemed to fit in with the vows of the REAP, the 10 attributes that we feel represent our United States military. I thought, what a great opportunity to put those two things together and show our kids through how we act some of the things that can make their lives better, their communities better, and by doing that, the country better. For me, Live with Purpose, I think, it's a mindset. Set some guidelines and then go out and purposefully make life different, make a change. It's an opportunity to set an example.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinister One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.